My name is Rhea Langford, and I'm 24 years old. On the day my life changed, I was standing at the altar with a man I barely knew, while my family watched me like I was their last hope. The church smelled of old wood and flowers, but all I could feel was the heavy scent of fear. My hands were cold, my dress was tight around my chest, and my heart was beating so loud I thought everyone could hear it. I did not come here for love. I came here because of numbers, debts, and signatures that almost destroyed my family. The man beside me wore a dark suit and a calm face, as if this wedding was just another business meeting. His name was Adrian Ward, and until 3 weeks ago, I had never heard his name in my life. Now I was about to say I do to him, just so my family could breathe again. My mother sat in the first row, holding a handkerchief, her eyes red from nights without sleep. My younger brother Liam stared at the floor, his jaw tight, his fists closed as if he wanted to punch the world and could not. Behind them, I saw the quiet anger and worry of my relatives, all dressed in their best clothes, trying to pretend this was a normal happy wedding. It was not. It was our painful bargain. The priest spoke words about love, union, and God's will, but his voice felt far away, like it was coming from another room. I was not thinking about love. I was thinking about the letter from the bank, the calls from the collectors, and the final notice that shook our small house like an earthquake. I was thinking about the night my father sat at the kitchen table, his head in his hands, while the papers lay open beside a cold cup of coffee. He had built a small transport business with his own hands, and then one bad deal, one dishonest partner, one cruel interest rate, and everything collapsed. When the first truck was taken, we still had hope. When the second one went, my father stopped looking me in the eyes. When the letter came saying they would take our house, my mother stopped singing in the mornings. I remember that night clearly, because it was the first time I felt truly afraid of tomorrow. We had no savings big enough, no rich relatives, no magic solution, just debt growing like a dark storm over our roof. Then, one afternoon, my father came home with a different face. There was still fear, but something else too, like shame. He sat us down at the table, my mother on one side, Liam and I on the other. "I found a way," he said, looking at the papers in his hands instead of our faces. His voice shook, and my mother reached for his wrist, already scared of the words that were coming. "There is a man," my father continued. "A man who can pay everything we owe. The trucks, the house, all of it." My mother's hand froze. Liam frowned. I felt a strange cold inside me. "What does he want?" I asked, because nothing in our world came for free, and we all knew that. My father finally looked at me then, and his eyes were wet. "He wants a wife," he said, and the words sounded heavier than any debt we ever had. My mother gasped softly, her fingers covering her mouth. Liam pushed his chair back, the legs scraping against the floor, his face turning red. "What is this, Dad?" he almost shouted. "This is a joke, right?" But it was not a joke, my father explained slowly, each word cutting a piece of my old life away. The man was wealthy, older than me, but not old. He had no time for dating, no patience for games, and no desire to trust easily after a past full of betrayal. He wanted a wife who would marry him under clear terms, almost like a contract. In exchange, he would pay every cent of our debt and keep our house from being taken. My mother shook her head over and over as if she could refuse the whole universe by moving it side to side. "This is wrong," she whispered. "We cannot sell our daughter like this." Her words made my stomach twist, but they were true and they were kind, and I loved her for them. My father was crying now, real tears that slid down his cheeks like he was breaking from the inside. "I know," he said. "I know it is wrong, but they will take our home next month. We have no more time." The room felt smaller, like the walls were pressing in. My brother stood up and hit the table with his fist. "I will work 2 jobs," he said. 3 jobs. I will fix this." "Rhea doesn't have to." He stopped, unable to say the rest, as if the idea of me marrying a stranger tasted bitter in his mouth. But I already knew the numbers. I had seen the bills. I had watched the interest grow faster than we could breathe. 3 jobs would not fix this. 10 jobs would not fix this in time. I looked at my father, at the man who used to lift me in his arms when I was little and tell me that everything would be okay. Now he could not say those words anymore. Who is he? I asked quietly. My father told me his name. Adrian Ward. He owns several companies, including the one that now had our debt in its hands. He had bought our fear along with our contracts, but instead of pushing us into the street, he made this strange offer. A clean slate in exchange for a wife, in exchange for me. My mother began to cry, and Liam walked out of the kitchen, the door slamming behind him. The sound made me jump, but it also made me wake up. I was 24. I had dreams once, simple ones, to study more, to maybe open a small art studio, to travel to a city where no one knew my name. Now my dream had become smaller. I just wanted my family to be safe. Did he ask for me? I asked, my voice barely louder than a breath. My father nodded slowly. He saw your photo on my desk, he said. From your graduation. He asked about you? I told him you were my daughter. I imagined a stranger looking at my picture like I was a solution, not a person. Something inside me hurt in a way I did not know how to describe. My mother grabbed my hand across the table. You will not do this, she said firmly. We will find another way. But there was no other way, and we all knew it. The silence that followed was heavy and long, filled with unsaid truth. I looked around our small kitchen, the cracked tile, the old curtains, the fridge that made a soft humming sound, the chair where my father used to sit and joke after long days of work. I imagined all of it gone. I imagined my mother in a smaller place, far from her garden, my brother sleeping on a couch, my father losing not only his business, but his pride. I thought of the look on his face when the last truck was taken. I did not want to see that look again. My heart felt like it was burning and freezing at the same time. I want to meet him, I said. My mother's fingers tightened around mine. Rhea, no, she whispered. You don't understand what this means. I do, I answered, though part of me still did not. My father watched me with shock and pain in his eyes, as if he hoped I would change my mind in the next second. But I did not. I lifted my chin, even as my hands trembled in my lap. If this is the only way to save us, I said slowly, then I will at least look him in the eyes when he makes this bargain. I did not know then how much that choice would cost my heart. I did not know how far from debt to altar would really be. I only knew that the path had already begun the moment I spoke those words. And now, standing at the altar beside Adrian, with the priest asking if I would take this man to be my husband, I could feel every step that led me here like a bruise on my soul. My lips parted to speak, but before I could answer, Adrian leaned closer, just enough so only I could hear him. I hope your family understands, he murmured softly, his voice calm and unreadable. That every bargain has a price, Rhea. I froze. My eye dew dying in my throat for a second as I realized I had no idea what the real price of this bargain would be. I looked at him, confused by his words, but the priest was waiting, and the silence was growing heavy around us. My heart was beating too hard, and for a moment, I thought I would faint right there in front of everyone. But then I saw my mother's eyes. She was trying to smile, trying to be brave for me, even though her lips were shaking. That small, broken smile was enough to make me breathe again. I swallowed hard, lifted my chin, and forced the words out. I do. They left my mouth quietly, almost like a secret. The kind of secret that changes everything forever. Adrian said his part too, calm and polite, without hesitation. His voice echoed through the church like a door closing behind me. When the priest announced us as husband and wife, a wave of cold ran through my chest. I was someone's wife now, a stranger's wife, and nothing felt real. The guests clapped softly, but it was not the sound of happiness. It was the sound of relief. The sound of people who believed this marriage would save everything. I felt their expectations heavy on my shoulders, like I was carrying all of them with me. Adrian stepped back, letting the priest give us a brief blessing. Then he offered his arm to me, like we were acting in some old movie. His expression didn't change. No smile, no warmth. Just control, like he already knew how the rest of this day would go. When we walked down the aisle, my legs were trembling. my dress felt too tight, and the air felt too thin. I kept my eyes forward, but I felt my family on both sides. My father stood up quickly when I passed. He didn't clap. He didn't smile. He just looked at me with tears that he tried to hide. My mother reached for my hand for a second as I passed. She couldn't hold it, but the touch was enough for me to feel the pain in her fingers. Liam didn't look at me at all. He kept his eyes locked on the floor, jaw tense. I knew he was angry at the world, angry at the debt, angry at the man beside me, and maybe a little angry at me too. Outside the church, the sun was bright but didn't feel warm. Adrian stopped near a black car parked at the front. A driver held the door open. Adrian turned to me with a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Your family can ride with the others," he said. "We have our own car, our own life, our own future." All of it felt unreal. I looked back at my parents. My mother lifted her hand in a weak wave. My father nodded at me, trying to give me strength, but I saw the guilt in his eyes. And Liam, he just stared at Adrian like he wanted to break him in half. Adrian touched my back lightly, guiding me into the car. His touch was careful, almost distant, but it still made my stomach twist. Once inside, the door closed with a soft thud that sounded too final. As the car started moving, I kept watching my family through the window until they disappeared behind us. The moment they were gone, something inside me broke a little more. I felt alone, even though Adrian sat right next to me. He finally spoke after a long silence. "You handled yourself well," he said. "Not everyone can stay that calm under pressure." "I wasn't calm," I whispered. He turned his head slightly, studying my face. "You were calm enough." His voice was smooth, controlled, every word precise. It made me feel small and unsure, like I couldn't guess what he was thinking, like he always knew more than he said. I held my hands together in my lap, trying to stop them from shaking. "You said every bargain has a price," I murmured. "What did you mean?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked out the window, watching the streets pass by, before he finally spoke. "You'll understand soon." The words felt like a shadow falling over me. I realized then that I didn't know this man at all. Not his past, not his reasons, not the real cost behind his offer to save my family. And now I was married to him, sitting inches away from someone who held both my future and my fear in his hands. The silence between us grew heavier and heavier until I couldn't bear it anymore. My voice shook when I finally spoke. "Are you doing this for control?" I asked quietly, "or for something else?" He turned to me again, and for a moment, I saw something in his eyes I couldn't read. Sadness? Anger? Regret? It disappeared too quickly. "I don't waste time on things that don't matter," he said. "You, however, matter more than you think." His answer confused me even more. My heartbeat grew louder and I felt a cold knot forming inside my chest. "What does that mean?" I whispered. He didn't answer. He just leaned back in his seat, closed his eyes for a moment and said softly, "We'll talk when we get home." Home. I didn't even know where home was now. When the car finally stopped in front of a large house bigger than anything I had ever seen, the air left my lungs. The place looked like a mansion, beautiful but cold, elegant but distant. Like a house built for a person who didn't allow warmth inside. The driver opened my door and I stepped out slowly. Adrian stood beside me, hands in his pockets, watching me like he was waiting for something in my reaction. "Welcome," he said quietly. "This is where you live now." My stomach tightened at his words. This wasn't just a house. It was a new world. A world I didn't choose, but one I had stepped into to save the people I loved. I turned to look at him, hoping to find a piece of reassurance, but his face gave me nothing. No smile, no kindness, just calm control. Then he added something that made my breath catch in my throat. "And from this moment on, Rhea, your life is not only yours anymore." The wind blew cold against my skin, and I felt the ground shift under my feet. I had no idea what he meant, but I was about to find out. When I stepped inside the house, the first thing I noticed was the silence. It was not a normal silence. It was deep, heavy, controlled, the kind of silence that belongs to places where feelings are not welcome. The air smelled like wood and something clean, almost too clean, like nothing here had ever been touched by real life. I walked slowly, my fingers brushing the edge of a long table near the entrance. The surface was cold, like it had been polished moments before I arrived. Adrian watched me quietly, his hands still in his pockets, his tall figure blocking some of the light coming from the large windows. "This house is big for one person," I whispered because my voice felt too loud in the empty space. He looked at me with a calm expression. It wasn't always only one person. I wanted to ask more, but something in his tone made me stop. It felt like I was touching a wound I didn't understand. He gestured toward the hallway. "Your room is upstairs. You can rest. A few things were prepared for you." "Prepared?" I repeated, unsure. "Clothes, some personal items, things you might need." His voice was polite, distant. Not unkind, but not warm either. It felt like we were strangers acting in a script neither of us wrote. I followed him up the stairs, each step feeling heavier. The hallway upstairs was long and elegant, with soft lights and paintings that looked expensive. He stopped in front of a white door and opened it, revealing a room twice the size of my old living room. A large bed, soft curtains, a balcony, a dressing table, a wardrobe. Everything perfect, everything cold. "This is your space now," he said. I stepped inside, touching the edge of the bed. The sheets were new. The pillows smelled like lavender. It was beautiful, but I didn't feel safe, I didn't feel home. "Where is your room?" I asked softly. He pointed to the opposite end of the hallway. "Down there." So we were not sharing a room. A strange mix of relief and sadness moved inside me. "I'll let you rest," he said, turning slightly toward the door. "Dinner will be ready soon. If you want to join like I was a guest. Or an employee, not his wife." "Adrian," I called before he left, my voice small. He stopped but didn't turn around. "You said, 'My life isn't only mine anymore.' What did you mean?" He stayed silent for a moment. Then he said in a low voice, "You'll understand as we go." And he walked away, leaving me alone with a heart full of questions. I sat on the bed, letting the reality hit me. This was not a fairy tale wedding. This was a bargain, a bridge between two worlds, my family's fear and his mysterious reasons. And I was the price in the middle. As I looked around the room, I felt the tears coming. I covered my mouth to hold the sound. I didn't want the walls to hear me cry. I didn't want Adrian to hear either. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "Are you okay, my love?" I typed slowly. "I'm fine, don't worry." It was a lie. But it was a lie she needed. Another message came right after. "We love you. Come home anytime you want." Home, I wasn't sure where home was now. I didn't reply. I laid on the bed and closed my eyes, trying to breathe. This marriage was supposed to save us. But what if it destroyed me instead? Before I could rest, there was a soft knock on the door. I sat up quickly, wiping my tears. "Come in," I said. A woman entered, maybe in her 50s, dressed in a simple black uniform and holding a small tray with tea. Her smile was gentle, her eyes warm. "You must be Mrs. Ward," she said softly. The words hit me like a wave. Mrs. Ward. Me. His wife. In name but not in heart. "Yes," I whispered. "I guess I am." "I'm Claire," she said kindly. "I've worked here for many years. If you need anything at all, you come to me. Anything." Her voice felt safe. Like a small light in this cold place. "Thank you," I said. Claire placed the tray on the table. "Adrian asked me to bring this. He thought it might help you relax." I blinked. "Adrian asked that?" "Yes, dear." The idea confused me. A man who spoke like stone had thought about something soft like tea. After Claire left, I stared at the cup for a long time. Maybe Adrian wasn't as cold as he seemed. Or maybe this was just another part of the bargain. When dinner came, I walked downstairs slowly, unsure of what to expect. Adrian was already at the table, dressed casually now, sleeves rolled up, looking less like a stranger and more like a man I didn't know yet. He looked at me when I entered, his eyes moving across my face for a second longer than before. "You came," he said. I sat down across from him. "Should I not?" He hesitated. "You can choose. I won't force you." His words surprised me. I thought everything about this marriage was forced, but maybe not everything. We ate in silence for a moment. The food was warm and delicious, but my stomach was tight. I watched him, trying to understand him. Finally, I gathered the courage to speak. Why me? He placed his fork down slowly, looking straight into my eyes. You want honesty? Yes. He leaned back in his chair. His voice lowered, his eyes softened, just a little. You reminded me of someone I once lost. My breath caught. A soft ache moved through his expression, a pain he tried hard to hide. Who? I asked, barely breathing. But before he could answer, the lights flickered suddenly, and a loud noise echoed from the hallway. Adrian stood up quickly, his expression sharp, almost angry. Stay here, he said. What was that? But he was already walking away fast, disappearing into the dark corridor. I sat alone at the table, fear twisting in my chest, the silence closing around me once again. Whatever just happened. It did not feel normal. It made me realize something terrifying. There were secrets in this house, and I had just married into them. The moment Adrian disappeared down the hallway, the house seemed to grow even larger, darker, and colder. The noise still echoed in my ears, something between a crash and a heavy thud, like furniture falling or a door being slammed too hard. My heart was beating fast and my fingers curled around the edge of my chair as if holding on to something could stop the fear from growing inside me. I looked toward the corridor, but the lights there flickered again, weaker this time, as if the house was breathing out a long, tired sigh. The shadows stretched across the floor, long and strange, and I felt a chill run through my arms. I tried to calm myself. Maybe something had just fallen. Maybe a window was open. Maybe a fuse had burned out. But deep inside, I knew the sound wasn't normal, and Adrian's reaction was too quick, too sharp, too practiced. I stood up slowly, unsure if I should follow or stay. My feet moved a little, then stopped. I didn't know the house. I didn't know the rules. I didn't know him. And he had told me to stay, so I stayed. But sitting at that table alone felt like being abandoned in a world I didn't understand. The minutes passed slowly. I could hear faint sounds, footsteps, a door opening, hushed voices, something being dragged or moved. Each sound made my pulse jump. It was strange how a place so beautiful on the outside could feel so full of secrets inside. I finally walked to the edge of the dining room where the corridor began. I didn't go in, but I listened. My breath was quiet, and I held one hand over my chest, trying to calm my heartbeat. The voices grew clearer, Adrian's voice, and another one. A woman? No, a man. Older, deeper, almost angry. I stepped back quickly when I heard footsteps coming closer. Adrian appeared around the corner. His hair was a little messed up now, his jaw tight. The calm mask he wore all day cracked just enough to show something underneath. Irritation, stress, maybe even fear. He stopped when he saw me standing there. I told you to stay at the table, he said, not harshly, but firmly. I heard voices, I whispered. Is everything okay? He inhaled slowly, controlling his expression before answering. Yes. Something fell in the storage room. It's nothing for you to worry about, but I didn't believe him. Not because he was lying exactly, but because he wasn't telling the whole truth. Who were you talking to? I asked softly. His jaw moved, just a small clench, just an employee. I lowered my eyes. You seem upset. His silence lasted too long, and when he finally spoke, his voice was low and controlled again. There are things in this house that don't concern you, he said. Not now. Not now. The words felt like a wall being built between us. But I live here, I said gently. Doesn't that mean it should concern me too? His eyes softened for a moment, the tension in his shoulders loosening. He walked toward me slowly, and for the first time since our wedding, he looked like a man, not a contract. He stood close enough that I could smell his cologne, something warm and dark, like cedar and smoke. You're right, he murmured. You live here, and I want you to feel safe. I looked up at him, surprised by the softness in his tone. But safety doesn't mean knowing everything, he added quietly. Sometimes it means the opposite. That strange, cold knot in my chest tightened again. He gestured toward the stairs. Go rest, Rhea. Today was hard enough. I nodded slowly, even though part of me wanted to stay, wanted to know what was happening in the shadows of this house. I walked upstairs, feeling his eyes on me until I reached the landing. When I entered my room and closed the door, I leaned against it, my breath shaking. What was he hiding? And why did I feel like those secrets were not from the past, but from the present? I sat on the bed, hugging my knees for a moment, trying to calm my thoughts. Then I heard footsteps outside my door, slow, heavy, stopping right in front of my room. My body froze. I didn't breathe. The footsteps stayed there for a moment, then moved again, heading down the hall. I released a breath I didn't know I was holding. I stood up and walked to the balcony for some air. The night was quiet outside, the city lights far away, and the garden below looked peaceful. Too peaceful compared to what I felt inside the house. When I stepped back into the room, something caught my eye. On the dresser, next to the tea Claire had brought earlier, there was a small framed photo I hadn't noticed before. My heart jumped. It wasn't me. It was another woman. Younger than I expected. Beautiful, with soft eyes and a gentle smile. And she looked familiar. I picked up the frame carefully. On the back, written in a clean, elegant handwriting, were the words, "For Adrian. Always." A cold shiver ran down my spine. Who was she? Why was the photo here in my room? Did Adrian put it there? Or someone else? I held the frame tighter, my heartbeat quickening. Suddenly, a soft knock echoed on my door. "Rhea?" Claire's warm voice called, "Are you awake, dear?" I hid the photo behind the dresser just as she opened the door. She smiled gently at me. "I brought you extra blankets. Nights here can be cold." "Thank you," I said, forcing a smile. But Claire stopped when she looked at my face. Her kind eyes softened even more. "You look pale. Did something happen?" I hesitated. "Claire, who lived here before me?" Her smile disappeared slowly. She looked down at the blankets in her hands. Then she whispered, "Some stories in this house are not mine to tell. But be careful, dear. Not everything here is as it seems." A soft fear crawled up my skin. "What does that mean?" I whispered. But Claire only shook her head and left, closing the door gently behind her. I sat on the bed again, staring at the door, at the shadows on the walls, at the dresser where the picture now hid. The house wasn't just silent. It was holding its breath, like it was waiting for me to discover something, or to make a mistake. And as I lay down, pulling the blankets over me, I couldn't stop thinking about the woman in the picture. Why did I look just a little like her? And what did she mean to Adrian? I closed my eyes, but sleep didn't come easily. Because in this house full of secrets, I had the terrible feeling that I was not just a wife brought in for a bargain. It was a replacement for someone he had lost, or someone who had left, or someone who had been taken. The next morning began with a cold light entering through the curtains, turning the room a pale shade of gray. I woke up slowly, my body heavy, as if the night had pressed its weight onto my chest. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then the silence reminded me, the big room, the strange house, the bargain, the wedding, the secrets. I sat up and touched the empty space beside me. It felt colder than the rest of the bed, like no one had slept there in a long time. Maybe no one ever would. I rubbed my eyes and stood up, trying to push away the feeling that something was wrong before I even opened the door. When I stepped into the hallway, I noticed a soft smell of coffee coming from downstairs. Felt normal, almost comforting, and I followed it slowly. The house still felt too quiet, but the morning light softened the shadows a little. As I reached the last step, I saw Adrian sitting at the dining table, already dressed, already serious, already unreadable. He looked up when I entered. "Good morning," he said. His voice wasn't warm, but it wasn't cold either. It felt somewhere in the middle. Controlled. "Good morning," I whispered back. Claire appeared from the kitchen with a gentle smile. "Sit down, dear. I made breakfast for you." I thanked her and sat across from Adrian. He watched me for a few seconds, his eyes tracing my face with a quiet intensity I didn't understand. "You didn't sleep well," he said. It wasn't a question. No, I admitted softly, it's a new place. And a difficult start, he added. Something in the way he said it felt almost like an apology. Almost. I hesitated, then forced myself to ask a question that had been burning inside me all night. Adrian, who was the woman in the photo? He froze. It was small, just a pause, a breath, a tightness in his shoulders, but it was enough. Enough to tell me the question was dangerous. He didn't speak right away. Claire placed a plate in front of me, then gave Adrian a nervous look before returning quickly to the kitchen. The silence grew until it filled the entire room. Finally, he said, "Where did you see that photo?" His voice was low, controlled. Too controlled. "In my room," I answered. On the dresser. His jaw tightened. It shouldn't have been there. "Who is she?" I asked again. Adrian looked at me with a deep, heavy sadness that made my chest tighten. "Her name was Evelyn." "Was?" I whispered. He nodded once. "She died." The words fell between us like a stone, heavy, final. "I'm sorry," I said softly. He didn't look away from me. It was a long time ago. But something in his eyes said it wasn't long enough. Not for the pain to fade. Not for the wounds to close. "Why was her photo in my room?" I asked quietly. He looked down at the table. His fingers tapped once, then stopped. When he lifted his eyes again, his voice was quieter. "I didn't put it there." I felt a cold wave roll over me. "Then, who did?" Before he could answer, someone knocked gently on the front door. Adrian stood up, sharp and tense again. He didn't say a word as he walked away, but the way he moved told me everything. Something was wrong. I listened from the dining room as he opened the door. A man's voice spoke, low and urgent. Adrian answered in the same tone. Then footsteps entered the house. Heavy, determined, moving toward the office near the hallway. Claire hurried out of the kitchen with worry in her eyes. "Are you all right, dear?" she whispered. "What's happening?" I asked. She shook her head. "Mr. Ward. He has many responsibilities. Many problems from before you came." "Problems like what?" I asked. Claire hesitated. "Some people still come to him asking for things. Some want help. Others want trouble." I felt my stomach tighten. "Is this connected to Evelyn?" I whispered. Her face changed. A shadow passed through her eyes. She opened her mouth to answer, then stopped suddenly, looking past me. Adrian stood in the doorway, watching us. His eyes were sharp again, guarded. "Rhea," he said. "Come with me." Claire lowered her head and slipped away without another word. I followed Adrian down the hallway, trying to control my breathing. He opened the door to his office and stepped aside so I could enter. Inside was a man I had never seen before, older, with a heavy coat and a serious face. "This is Mr. Davis," Adrian said. The man nodded politely but didn't smile. His eyes were full of something that felt like warning, or pity. "I came to speak about the incident yesterday," Mr. Davis said. I froze. "Incident?" Adrian shot him a sharp look, but the man continued. "You heard the noise, didn't you?" My throat tightened. "Yes, Mr." Davis looked at Adrian again, then at me. "Mrs. Ward," he said slowly, "there are things about this house you should know." Adrian stepped closer, his voice firm. "Enough, Davis. She deserves to understand," the man insisted. "She deserves peace," Adrian replied. "Peace? In this house? With secrets in every corner?" I took a small step forward, my voice trembling. "Please," I said, "tell me." Mr. Davis sighed, rubbing his forehead. Then he looked straight into my eyes. "This isn't the first time a woman lived here with him," he said softly. "And it isn't the first time strange things have happened inside these walls." My blood turned cold. "What happened to Evelyn," he continued, "didn't start outside this house." His voice dropped. "It started right here." Adrian turned sharply, his voice like steel. "Rhea, don't listen to him." But I already had. And the fear spreading inside my chest told me this was only the beginning. "Mr." Davis's words stayed in the air between us like dust that refused to fall. The room felt too small, the walls too close, and the silence too heavy, like something was pressing on my chest, pushing the air out of me. I looked from him to Adrian, waiting for someone to explain, to say something that made sense. But they just stared at each other, locked in a silent fight I didn't understand. Finally, Adrian took a step toward Mr. Davis. His jaw was tight, his eyes sharp like glass. "This conversation is over." "No," I said before I could stop myself. My voice was quiet but firm. "It's not over. Not for me." Adrian turned to me slowly. His eyes softened for a second, not with kindness but with something more complicated, something tired. "Rhea." I shook my head. "I need to know. You keep saying this is my home now. Then I deserve the truth." Mr. Davis looked at me with something like sadness. He opened his mouth to speak, but Adrian cut him off again, his voice low and controlled. "Leave. Adrian, leave," he repeated, stronger this time. Mr. Davis hesitated. Then he exhaled, nodded to me once, and walked out of the office without another word. When the door closed behind him, the silence fell hard. Adrian turned toward me, but I stepped back before he could say anything. I wasn't scared of him exactly, but I was scared of everything I didn't know, everything he refused to tell me. "What happened to Evelyn?" I whispered. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. He just stared at me. "Why do I look like her?" His eyes flickered with something painful. "You don't, but you chose me," I whispered, "because of her." He closed his eyes for a moment, as if my words were knives. Then he opened them slowly. "I chose you because your father needed help, and because you were brave enough to take the bargain." I felt a cold drop of anger in my chest. That's not the whole truth. He didn't deny it. The silence felt like a wall between us, strong, tall, impossible to climb. "Why won't you tell me what happened?" I asked with a shaking voice. He looked down at his hands for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, almost fragile, 'cause some things hurt more when spoken aloud. "Then let them hurt," I whispered. "Let me understand you. Let me understand this house. Let me understand what I walked into." He took a deep breath, and for the first time, he looked human. Not distant, not cold. Just a man with too many memories in his eyes. "It's not you I'm protecting," he said softly. "It's myself." I stared at him, unsure if I should move closer or farther away. Before I could decide, someone knocked on the door again. Fast, sharp, urgent. Adrian straightened immediately. "Come in." Claire entered, her face pale. She looked at me, then at Adrian. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's someone outside asking to speak with your wife." "With me?" I asked, shocked. Adrian's eyes darkened. "Who?" Claire swallowed. "A young man. He says his name is Liam." My heart jumped. "My brother?" I whispered. Before I could even move, I was already running toward the entrance, my footsteps loud in the hallway. When I reached the front door, I pulled it open, and there he was, Liam, breathing hard, face tense, eyes full of fear and anger. "Rhea," he said, grabbing my arms. "Are you okay? Tell me you're okay." "I'm fine," I said quickly, even though I wasn't sure it was true. "You didn't answer my messages," he said. "Mom's worried." "I'm worried." "This whole thing, this house, this man, Liam," I whispered, trying to calm him. "Please." But then his eyes looked past me, at Adrian standing behind me. "You," Liam said, stepping forward, his voice shaking with rage. "What have you done to her?" "Nothing," Adrian said calmly. "She is safe." "Safe?" Liam repeated. "In this place? With you?" "Liam, stop," I said, pulling his arm. "Please." But he wouldn't stop. His fear for me was bigger than his control. "You bought her," he said to Adrian. "With money. With fear. You think that makes you a man?" Adrian's eyes hardened. "This isn't your concern. She's my sister," Liam snapped. "Everything about her is my concern." The tension grew so thick I could feel it in my bones. "I want to talk to her alone," Liam said. "No," Adrian answered. My breath caught. "What? Why not?" Because Adrian said, his voice low, "This house has rules. And one of them is that no one walks freely inside it without my permission." Liam stepped closer. I don't care about your rules. Adrian stepped closer too, but I do. The air between them sparked like fire. Adrian, please, I begged. Let me talk to him. He looked at me, really looked, and something softened in his expression again. Then he nodded. You can talk, he said, but outside, and not for long. I grabbed Liam's hand and pulled him outside, closing the door behind us. The cold air hit my skin, but it felt softer than the air inside. We walked a few steps into the garden, far from the house. Liam turned to me, his eyes wild and scared. Rhea, what's happening in there? I looked back at the house, tall, silent, watching us like a living thing. I don't know, I whispered. But something is wrong, Liam. Something is very wrong. He grabbed my shoulders. Then come home. My eyes filled with tears. I can't. Yes, you can, he insisted. We'll figure everything out. We'll work. We'll fight. Just come. I can't, I whispered again. If I leave, the debt comes back. They take the house. They take everything. So what? He said. You think your life is a good trade? His voice broke. You think Mom and Dad want this? You think this is what we want for you? A tear slipped down my cheek. I'm scared, I whispered. He pulled me into a hug, holding me tight. Then come with me, please. But as I held on to him, I felt it. A pair of eyes watching us. I turned slowly. Adrian stood at the doorway. And the expression on his face was not cold, not calm, not distant. It was something darker, something dangerous, something I didn't recognize. In that moment, I realized something terrifying. Adrian didn't like seeing me in someone else's arms, even if it was my own brother. Adrian's eyes locked on us, and the air around him changed. It felt heavier, darker, as if a storm had entered the garden without wind or clouds. Liam stepped slightly in front of me, his body tense, ready to defend me from a danger neither of us fully understood yet. I could feel his fear rising, like a pulse under his skin. But Adrian wasn't shouting, wasn't moving fast, he was just standing there watching, and somehow that was worse. Let her go, Adrian said quietly. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried more weight than a scream. Liam didn't move. He kept his hand around my arm, holding me close, protecting me like he had done since we were kids. She's my sister, Liam said. I'm not letting her go unless she wants me to. Adrian stepped down the stone stairs, his movement slow and controlled. His eyes never left Liam's hand on my arm. You're on my property, you will follow my rules, and what rule is that? Liam shot back. That no one touches her but you? Liam, I whispered, tugging his sleeve gently. Please don't. No, he cut me off. You're scared, Rhea. I see it in your eyes. I'm not leaving you here. Adrian stopped walking when he reached us, only a few steps away. I could feel the tension between them like heat, like a string pulled tight enough to snap. Take your hand off her, Adrian repeated. Liam didn't. He lifted his chin instead. Or what? Adrian's jaw tightened in a way that made my stomach drop. For a moment, I didn't see a businessman or a stranger. I saw something buried deeper. A man who had lost control before, a man who feared losing it again. I stepped between them quickly, placing my hands against Liam's chest. Stop, please, don't fight. Liam looked at me, breathing hard. He's dangerous, Rhea. I can feel it. I don't trust him. Then trust me, I whispered. Just trust me for now. His expression softened, but only for a second. Then he shook his head. I can't walk away and leave you with him. You won't be leaving me, I told him. You'll be helping me by not making this worse. He looked down, torn, his fingers trembling as they loosened from my arm. When he finally let go, Adrian exhaled quietly, not relief, but something colder. Liam pointed a finger at him. If you hurt her, I won't, Adrian said, unless you give me a reason. Adrian, I snapped, shocked at how sharp my voice came out. He blinked. The darkness in his eyes faded just a little. I meant, unless he tries to force her away from something she chose. Liam's face twisted. Chose? This wasn't a choice. It was a trap. My throat tightened. He wasn't wrong, but he wasn't completely right either. Go home, I whispered to Liam, touching his cheek like Mom used to do when we were young. Tell them I'm okay. Don't make them worry more. He closed his eyes, inhaling shakily. Then he pulled me into another hug. Tighter, longer, desperate. I'll come back, he promised. Every day if I have to. I know, I whispered. When he finally let go, he walked past Adrian with his shoulders squared, refusing to show fear. But I saw the way his steps quickened once he reached the gate. The moment the gate shut behind him, the air turned heavy again. Adrian looked at me, his expression unreadable. Shouldn't let him come here without warning. He's my brother, I said. He was worried. He was interfering. He was trying to protect me. Adrian's voice dropped. From what? I hesitated. Too long. He noticed. Before he could say anything else, he walked past me with long, frustrated steps. So I followed him back inside the house, closing the door behind us. The silence inside felt louder now, full of everything we didn't say. He walked to the living room and stopped, his back facing me. His shoulders were tense. Do you think I will hurt you? He asked without turning around. My breath caught. I don't know. He turned slowly, and the hurt in his eyes was sharp, raw. You looked at me like you were afraid. I'm afraid of what I don't know, I whispered. He closed his eyes, as if my words cut deeper than he expected. There are things in my past, he said softly, that I'm not proud of. Things you might not understand yet. Then explain, I said. I'm not asking for everything, just something. He shook his head. Not yet. Why not? Because I don't want you to see me the way they do, he said, voice cracking just barely, like a monster. I stepped closer, slowly, my heart beat loud. Then show me who you really are. He looked at me, and for the first time since I met him, his mask broke completely. I saw pain. I saw fear. I saw loneliness so deep it frightened me. I don't know who I am without the things I've lost, he whispered. Who did you lose? I asked. He opened his mouth to answer, but suddenly the lights flickered again. A loud crash echoed from upstairs, much louder than the night before, much heavier. Something or someone had fallen. Adrian spun around immediately. Stay here. No, I said, moving toward the stairs. Not again. I'm coming. You're not, he insisted. But I had already climbed the first step. Rhea, he said sharply. I turned back, my voice trembling. If I live here, I won't be treated like a shadow in my own home. His eyes softened painfully, beautifully. But that softness turned to fear in an instant when another crash came from upstairs, followed by what sounded like a door slamming open. Adrian rushed past me, running up the stairs. I followed him, my breath shaking, my heart pounding. The hallway was darker than before, colder. The air felt wrong. We reached the end of the corridor. My bedroom door was wide open and on the floor. The framed photo of Evelyn lay shattered, glass broken into 100 small pieces. But that wasn't what made my knees weaken. What made my voice die in my throat was the wall behind the dresser. A message was scratched into the paint, long, uneven, desperate lines carved with something sharp. 4 words. 4 words that made my blood freeze. She shouldn't be here. Adrian stepped in front of me so fast I barely saw his movement. His arm came out like a shield, blocking the view as if the words carved into the wall could burn my eyes. But I had already seen them. The message was inside me now, scratching at my chest the same way it had scratched into the paint. She shouldn't be here. The letters were deep, uneven, almost frantic, like someone had written them in a hurry, or in fear, or in anger strong enough to make their hands shake. The room was freezing cold, colder than a normal room should ever feel. It was like the cold was coming from the walls themselves. Don't come in, Adrian said, voice firm, protective, almost desperate. I moved to the side, trying to see past him, but he stepped again, blocking my path with his whole body. His hands were trembling. Adrian Ward, the calm, controlled man who never showed a crack, was shaking. Who did this? I whispered. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. His silence said enough. Adrian, someone was in my room. Yes, he said. My breath trembled. Who? He hesitated, his jaw tight. Someone who shouldn't have been. That's not an answer, I whispered. It's the only one you'll get right now. I felt a tear slip down my cheek. Not from fear alone, but from confusion. From the growing feeling that I was trapped in a story I didn't understand, inside a house that didn't want me here. Move, I whispered. Let me see. No, Adrian. No, he repeated stronger, his voice breaking. He was afraid, not for himself, for me. Please, I whispered. I have the right to know. He closed his eyes for a moment like he was fighting with himself. When he opened them again, he slowly stepped to the side, just enough for me to see the writing again. I covered my mouth with my hand, trying not to gasp. Seeing it again made the cold feel sharper, like someone had pressed ice against my spine. This wasn't here before, I said quietly. Last night, this morning. It wasn't here. I know, Adrian said softly. Then someone came into my room. Someone who doesn't want me here. Adrian looked away. It's complicated. Then explain. I can't. Not now. You keep saying that, I said, my voice shaking harder. Not now. Not yet. Later. But later. Keeps getting worse. He stepped closer to me, his voice dropping. If I tell you now, you'll run. And I can't let you run. My heartbeat stopped for a second. Can't let me? I repeated. He swallowed hard. It's not safe for you to leave until I fix this. Fix what? Fix what? Fix work. Before I could speak again, Claire appeared in the corridor, her breath short, her eyes wide with fear the moment she saw the wall. Oh no, she whispered, pressing her hand against her lips. Not again. Again. The word hit me like a cold hand grabbing my arm. Claire, I said, stepping toward her. What do you know? Tell me, please. Claire looked at Adrian and her expression said everything she wanted to tell me. But she was afraid of him, of the house, of the past. Claire, I repeated softer. Please. She hesitated, then whispered, You're not the first woman to sleep in this room. My skin went cold. Adrian closed his eyes. Claire. She shook her head. She deserves to know something. I grabbed Claire's hand. Who wrote that message? Claire's voice lowered to a trembling whisper. Someone who lived here before you. Someone who didn't want to leave. I felt like the floor moved under my feet. Evelyn? I asked. Claire's eyes softened with pity. No, someone who came after her. After Evelyn? I repeated. Adrian exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Enough, Claire. Claire stepped back, fear returning to her eyes. I'm sorry. She hurried away down the hall. I turned to Adrian. How many women lived here before me? His jaw tightened. 2. My heart dropped. And what happened to them? He looked away. Things went wrong. What things? Things I'm trying to stop from happening again. I stared at him. Am I in danger? He stepped closer, his eyes suddenly soft and raw. Not from me. Never from me. Then from who? I asked. He closed the distance between us, his voice dropping into something almost pleading. Trust me, Rhea. I'm trying to protect you. That's all I'm doing. But you're not telling me what I'm being protected from. He didn't answer. Not a word. The silence told me more than anything he could have said. He wasn't protecting me from a person. He was protecting me from a story. His story. This house's story. I just took a shaky breath. I want to sleep somewhere else tonight. You will, he said immediately. You're not staying in this room again. Where? I asked. He looked at me with something like guilt. In the room next to mine, my knees felt weak. Why there? Because, he said, stepping closer until his breath touched my face, it's the only room in this house no one else has ever entered. Except you, I whispered. Yes, he answered softly. Only me. I swallowed hard. And what if whoever wrote that message comes back? They won't, he said. How do you know? He looked into my eyes with painful honesty. Because I won't leave your door tonight. For a moment I forgot how to breathe. You'll stay outside my room? I whispered. He nodded. I gave your family my word that you'd be safe. And I keep my word. I didn't know whether to feel comforted or terrified that he needed to stand guard. Adrian touched my hand gently, the softest touch he had given me since the day we married. I'm not your enemy, Rhea, he whispered. But if you knew what I'm fighting, you might think I am. The cold tightened around my spine. Then tell me, I breathed. He opened his mouth, then stopped, because from downstairs the front door slammed open. Footsteps rushed inside, heavy, fast. Adrian froze. I turned toward the staircase, fear rising in my throat. Then a voice echoed through the house. A voice filled with anger and pain. Where is she? I recognized it. I felt it like a punch. It was my father. When I heard my father's voice echo through the house, my whole body froze. It was raw, broken, full of fear and anger tangled together like a single wounded cry. Adrian reacted instantly, stepping in front of me again, as if he expected danger from every direction. But this time, the danger wasn't a stranger. It was blood. It was family. I pushed past him before he could stop me, my heart pounding as I ran down the hallway and toward the stairs. My father's footsteps were heavy, fast, shaking the floor with every step. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, he was already in the center of the entrance hall, breathing hard, hair messy, eyes wild. Dad, I whispered. He turned toward me, and the moment he saw me, something inside him broke. His shoulders dropped, his expression cracked into relief, and he rushed toward me, grabbing my face in his trembling hands. Rhea, he said, breathless. Oh God, you're okay? You're okay? I nodded, tears filling my eyes. I'm fine. I'm really fine. He pulled me into a tight hug, his body shaking. I was so scared. We heard things. We heard rumors, Liam said. He stopped, his voice breaking. I thought something had happened to you. I clung to him, breathing in his familiar scent, oil, metal, old jackets, home. That moment, everything felt like before. Safe, warm, simple. But that moment didn't last, because Adrian stepped closer and the air tightened again. You can't just break into my house, Adrian said, his voice controlled but sharp. My father let go of me slowly and turned toward him, his jaw clenched. You don't own my daughter. You don't own her life. Adrian's eyes darkened. I never said I did. You said you wouldn't let her leave, my father snapped. You said she wasn't safe outside. What kind of man says that to a woman he claims to protect? He said that? I whispered, my voice barely there. My father nodded. Liam told us. He came home pale as a ghost. He said something happened in your room, something dangerous. I closed my eyes for a moment. Dad, there was a message on my wall. What message? He demanded. I swallowed hard, it said. She shouldn't be here. My father's face went white, then red with rage. He turned to Adrian like a storm about to break. You brought her into a house where someone is threatening her? You promised us she'd be safe. Adrian's jaw clenched. I'm dealing with it. You're failing at it, my father shouted. The walls trembled with his voice. Claire stood at the far end of the hall, looking terrified. Mr. Davis appeared behind her, tense and worried. The whole house felt like it was holding its breath again. I stepped between them. Please stop, both of you. Neither of them moved for a moment. Dad, I whispered, turning to him. I'm scared, but I'm not in danger from Adrian. My father's eyes softened. But something here is hurting you. It's not him, I said. It's something else. Adrian looked at me with a flash of pain. Rhea, you don't need to defend me. I'm not defending you, I said. I'm trying to understand you, and I can't understand anything if everyone keeps shouting. My father took a step closer and held my hands tightly. Come home with me, now, please. My heart squeezed. The longing to go home with him, to my mother, to my brother, to safety, felt like a warm hand pulling at me. But the debt, the house, the writing on the wall, the secrets, Evelyn. If I walked out now, nothing would end, everything would chase us. I can't leave, I whispered. My father shook his head, refusing to accept it. They can't keep you here. Not legally, not morally. I'm not being kept. I whispered. Not by force. He looked at me, confused and heartbroken. Then why stay? Because if I leave, I said, my voice breaking, everything falls apart again. The debt returns. They take the house. They take your trucks. Mom loses everything. He closed his eyes. I never wanted your life in exchange for ours. I know, I whispered, but I gave it anyway. My father pulled me close again, his forehead resting on mine. Rhea, if anything happens to you, I'll never forgive myself. His voice cracked, and then another voice broke the moment. A woman's voice, soft, trembling, familiar. Sir, please, Claire said. Let me speak. We all turned toward her. Claire took a slow step forward. Her eyes were full of sadness, old sadness, deep sadness. She looked at my father first. Mr. Langford, she whispered, your daughter is not unsafe because of Adrian. My father's brow furrowed. Then who is she unsafe from? Claire swallowed hard, her voice shaking. She is unsafe because of Evelyn. The house went silent. I felt the air freeze around me. Evelyn? My father repeated. The woman who, yes, Claire whispered. The woman who died. My stomach dropped. Claire, what do you mean? She lifted her trembling hand and pointed upstairs, toward my old room. The room she used, Claire said. The room you slept in. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. She never left it. The floor felt like it shifted beneath me. Claire, Adrian warned, his voice cracking with fear. She needs to know, Claire cried. She deserves to know. My father grabbed my arm protectively. Know what? Claire closed her eyes. Then she spoke the truth that shattered everything. Evelyn didn't die outside this house, Claire whispered. She died inside it. In that room, a cold scream rose in my mind. But that's not the worst part, Claire continued. My father held me tighter. Adrian lowered his head. Mr. Davis whispered a prayer under his breath. Claire's voice broke as she finished. And she doesn't want another woman living there. My breath trembled. Claire, what are you saying? Claire's eyes filled with tears. I'm saying, she whispered, that Evelyn is still here. The world tilted around me. My father stepped back. Adrian's face crumpled with pain. Claire covered her mouth. Mr. Davis crossed himself. And I felt something cold brush the back of my neck. Something not human. Something that whispered inside my ear, a voice only I heard. You shouldn't be here. The same words carved on my wall. The same warning left for me. The house exhaled a cold breath, and in that moment I understood one terrifying truth. This bargain wasn't between me and Adrian. It was between me and the dead woman who never left.